In the cold, unforgiving waters off Mexico's Guadalupe Island, legends don't die. They simply wait in the dark. Every autumn, the great white sharks return like clockwork to hunt the elephant seals lounging on the rocky shores. For the divers and scientists aboard vessels like the Nautilus Explorer, these encounters are routine. Tuesday sharks, they call them, predictable, majestic, safe enough behind steel bars. Until one October morning when everything changed. A veteran cage diver and filmmaker, part of a long-term expedition, had his camera trained on a mature female great white, roughly 4.5 meters long, heavy-bodied, close to 3,000 pounds. She moved with the lazy confidence of an apex predator who fears nothing in these waters. She circled once, rolled to inspect the cage with one black, unblinking eye, her gill slits pulsing slowly. The sunlight filtered through the surface, dancing across her scarred dorsal fin. And that's when the light hit her midsection. What the lens captured next sent a ripple of silence through the entire boat. A scar. Not just any scar. A deep, perfectly circular wound that wrapped around her entire chest and belly like a grotesque belt. The arc was immense, spanning nearly half her body length. The edges showed the unmistakable imprint of serrated teeth, pressed with force that should have been fatal. Flesh had been torn away in a clean, crushing arc, yet the wound had healed with thick, leathery scar tissue, evidence of an incredible will to survive. Yet here she was, still swimming, still hunting, bearing the mark of something that had tried to swallow her whole. And failed. No one spoke. Not on the radio. Not on deck. The only sound was the gentle lapping of waves against the hull and the distant bark of seals. Because in that moment, every diver understood. Whatever left that mark was still out there. And it was bigger than anything science says should exist in these waters. Let's rewind. Guadalupe Island is no ordinary dive site. It's the summit of a massive underwater volcano rising from abyssal depths, isolated 200 kilometers off Baja California. Its surrounding waters are a magnet for mature great whites that come to feast on the abundant elephant seals and sea lions. The drop-offs nearby plunge thousands of feet into dark trenches where light barely reaches, creating a natural laboratory for the extreme. Dr. Mauricio Hoyos Padilla, a leading shark researcher who has cataloged the island's white shark population for over a decade, was no stranger to battle scars. These animals live violent lives. Rival bites from competing males, deep gashes from failed mating attempts, close calls with orcas that patrol the same hunting grounds. But this was different. This wasn't the chaotic slashing of a territorial dispute or the surgical precision of a killer whale. Back in the lab aboard the research vessel, Hoyos and his team pored over the high-resolution frames late into the night. They measured the arc against the shark's girth using digital calipers and 3D modeling software. They compared it against the known jaw dimensions of every large predator in the eastern Pacific, great whites, makos, even the occasional tiger shark. They scaled it against the sturdy bars of the dive cage for reference. The numbers didn't lie, and they were impossible. To leave a mark like that, the attacker's jaws would have needed to open roughly 6 feet across. Think about that. A typical record-breaking great white, like the famous deep blue, nearly 20 feet long and estimated at over 5,000 pounds, doesn't come close to that gape. Whatever clamped down on this female operated on an entirely different scale. Estimates placed the attacker between 25 and 30 feet, maybe more. A living shadow the length of a school bus, armed with teeth like daggers, capable of exerting bone-crushing pressure that modern sharks can only dream of. Officially, nothing that size patrols these waters. But the ocean doesn't care much for official records or human assumptions. The Guadalupe female wasn't alone in her encounter. As the team dug deeper into their archives, cross-referencing years of footage and photo catalogs, they found another female tagged seasons earlier with a similar, slightly healed arc on her flank. Digital overlays matched the curvature and tooth spacing almost perfectly. Same predator. Different encounters separated by months or even years. These weren't random scratches or one-off anomalies. They were calling cards from something enormous, something that had returned to these rich feeding grounds time and again. This scar doesn't stand in isolation. Thousands of miles away, off Western Australia, another piece of the puzzle had been quietly haunting researchers for over a decade. In 2014, scientists tagged a healthy 9-foot female great white shark alpha as part of a broad migration study. The tag dutifully recorded depth, temperature, acceleration, and movement patterns. For months, nothing unusual. The shark followed typical coastal routes, hunting stingrays and smaller fish. Then, one afternoon, the data went terrifying. The shark plunged vertically, past 500 feet, past 1,000, past 1,500. At nearly 2,000 feet, the water temperature around the tag spiked dramatically from a frigid 46 degrees Fahrenheit to nearly 80 degrees Fahrenheit in seconds. Water doesn't do that. Only a living body, a massive warm-blooded or regionally endothermic predator, does. For the next 8 days, the tag sat in warm, rhythmic conditions consistent with the inside of a digestive tract, slow muscular contractions, steady heat, and gradual breakdown. When it finally passed and washed ashore, the implications were clear. Something had swallowed the 9-foot great white whole and digested parts of it. A shark that size isn't easy prey. The predator had to be significantly larger, and operating in depths where conventional science says no such hunter exists. The scientific community offered cautious explanations, possibly cannibalism by another unusually large great white. But the geometry of the event, the depth, the temperature data, and the complete lack of struggle signatures left room for darker possibilities. That tag now sits alongside the Guadalupe footage on the same metaphorical shelf of unsolved oceanic mysteries, a chilling reminder of how little we truly know. To understand the horror of that circular scar, you have to understand how great whites interact. They are solitary lords of their domain, highly territorial. When territories overlap or food is at stake, violence is swift and hierarchical. Larger sharks dominate through intimidation and targeted bites, usually to the head, gills, or tail base. Warning shots. Shallow slashes meant to injure rather than kill outright. Never a full encircling grip across the midsection of a mature adult female like this. That kind of attack screams intent to consume. Cannibalism does happen, especially larger adults on juveniles, but an adult-on-adult strike at this scale implies a predator dwarfing its prey by a massive margin. The Guadalupe scar wasn't a territorial dispute or a mating injury. It was a failed hunt by something that views 15-foot great whites as potential meals, nothing more than a high-calorie snack. When wounds like this surface, the first suspect is always the orca. In South Africa, the infamous duo port and starboard have terrorized great white populations for years, flipping them upside down and surgically extracting their nutrient-rich livers. Their attacks are efficient, messy, and leave ragged tears and puncture wounds from conical teeth. They work in coordinated teams using intelligence and strategy. But the Guadalupe evidence doesn't match. Orcas have conical teeth and operate as a pod. This scar showed dense, serrated, triangular impressions, classic lamniform shark dentition, like that of great whites, makos, and their ancient relatives. No cetacean mouth fits the pattern. No team effort. Just one overwhelming, solitary bite. So what does? The room grows quiet when the conversation turns to the ghost in the fossil record. Otodus megalodon. The colossal prehistoric shark that ruled the oceans until roughly 3.6 million years ago, up to 60 feet long. Jaws wide enough to swallow a car. Teeth the size of a human hand, serrated like steak knives. Mainstream science says it's extinct, driven out by cooling oceans, shifting prey bases, and competition with newer marine mammals. No credible biologist publishes papers claiming survival today. Yet the wound geometry matches a subadult or young adult megalodon jaw with eerie precision. Not proof, but evidence that refuses to be ignored. Here's where the mystery deepens. When top predators vanish from fossils, it doesn't always mean total extinction. It can mean they retreated to environments hostile to fossilization. Below 3,000 feet, the abyss dissolves bone and cartilage rapidly. No sediment burial. No permanent record. Guadalupe sits atop one of the Eastern Pacific's dramatic drop-offs, trenches plunging over 12,000 feet. We've mapped the surface of Mars in greater detail than these depths. We've explored barely 5% of the ocean. The deep is home to known giants. Colossal squid exceeding 40 feet, Greenland sharks pushing 20 to 25 feet and living for centuries, six-gill sharks lurking below 1,000 feet in total darkness. Size is the rule down there, not the exception. A relic population or a lone survivor could rise under cover of darkness, hunt the rich seal colonies near the surface during the autumn months, and vanish back into the trench before dawn. Climate change and warming waters may be pulling great whites and their ancient hunters closer together for longer periods. The exposure is new. The predator may not be. Imagine it. A 28-foot shadow rising silently from 4,000 feet, its massive body barely disturbing the water column. Its dermal denticles, larger and rougher than any modern shark's, scraping like industrial armor plating. A mouth that unhinges not just for seals or smaller sharks, but for something far more ambitious. It tests the female great white, not out of malice, but pure caloric necessity in the energy-scarce deep. One massive bite. The female thrashes free in a cloud of blood and bubbles, scarred for life but alive. The giant retreats, unsatisfied but undeterred, back to the blackness where no cage diver dares follow. Science demands alternatives, and researchers are careful not to jump to sensational conclusions. First possibility: abyssal gigantism in a known species. Pacific sleeper sharks or Greenland sharks, already massive ambush predators, could have a deep trench subpopulation that ballooned to 30 feet thanks to cold, nutrient-rich conditions and abundant food, much like the colossal squid evolved in the Southern Ocean. A biological revolution without needing extinct species. Second, a genetic outlier great white. Rare individuals that never stop growing due to unique hormonal or genetic factors, hunting in the deep, unseen except through the scars they leave. Invisible to surveys because they avoid the shallows and cage-diving hotspots. Third, and most provocative, a species entirely unknown to science. The coelacanth was extinct for 65 million years until rediscovered in 1938. The megamouth shark stayed hidden until 1976. Marine biology's history is littered with animals declared impossible until they weren't. A new lamniform shark, evolved in isolation or persisting from ancient lineages, isn't beyond imagination in the vast, unexplored Pacific. Whichever is true, one fact remains. Our map of the Pacific food web has a massive, toothy blank spot. And that blank spot is hungry. The scarred female eventually drifted away from the cages, descending beyond sonar range into the blue void. She may return next season, her wound a badge of survival. She may not. But her scar is now permanent evidence, one of the most compelling biological anomalies of our time. Dr. Hoyos and his colleagues continue their work with renewed urgency. Every new tag, every new dive, every scar cataloged brings us closer to answers, or deeper into questions. They've begun deploying more advanced acoustic arrays and environmental DNA samplers, hoping to catch traces of the unknown. And somewhere in the trench right now, other great whites likely bear marks we've never seen, because they never came close enough to a camera or a researcher's boat. Every time we lower a cage or a probe into the sea, we're not just observing. We're interrogating the ocean. And occasionally, it answers back with something we were never meant to witness. A glimpse of what still rules the depths. A reminder that the apex predator crown may not belong solely to us, or to the great whites we thought we understood. If the idea of a living relic like Megalodon, or something even stranger, patrolling the trenches off Guadalupe excites or terrifies you, drop your theories in the comments. Do you believe the scar came from a surviving prehistoric giant? A mutated super shark? An undiscovered species? Or something we haven't even imagined? Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. The next piece of footage, the next scar, the next impossible data point could surface anytime. The ocean is still revealing its secrets. And the next one might not be on a shark at all. Until then, safe diving. And remember, in the deep, sighs still wins.